All right, welcome everyone. So we are starting off a new novel boot camp. This course goes all the way from idea to finished draft of a brand new manuscript, and it lasts for 90 days. So that means that we're using the NaNoWriMo time. We're starting in at the beginning of November, which is NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month. And that means that this is a month a lot of people use to try to write a complete book of at least 50,000 words. We can all do that together, like simultaneously sharing all of our progress and questions that we're having along the way and motivating each other to move forward. And you can kind of use the NaNoWriMo as like a jumping off point. You don't have to stick exactly to those rules or to the confines of that class if you don't want, or of that month-long program if you don't want to. In any case, we will be advancing the course will last all the way through November, December, and then a little bit into January. So you'll be finishing that book in January itself. So we're in a voice channel, not a stage channel, so if everyone could please mute your mics by clicking the gray microphone icon in the bottom left corner of your screen. Otherwise, sometimes we'll hear voices in the room and dogs barking and things like this, so please everyone do that. Thank you. If you're watching on one of our other sites, we are on Discord, so we are streaming on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Kick, and a couple other places that I can never remember all of them, but in any case, the main platform we use is Discord. So if you want to participate live in these classes, these interactive live classes every week, then come join us. You can find our website at scriptcamp.net, and at that website you can get the link to join our Discord community just at the top of your screen. You can also sign up for membership to Script Camp. Script Camp membership includes access to all of our other servers as well. This is really Skill Camp. And pretty soon we're going to be changing over the website from our main website from scriptcamp.net to skillcamp.net. But in any case, you can see that we have lots of servers here that are dedicated to different skills to reach your life goals. Lots of free and low-cost classes. We are a non-profit that offers these. And we also have lots of volunteers. We have weekly meetups, writers groups, genre groups, workshops, and readings, swaps, lots of other types of writing-related events on our main servers. Script Camp is our biggest one, but we have many others that you can see here, with new classes being added frequently. We have other servers like Code Camp, where we have new coding classes starting soon. Film Camp, where we're going to have a short film boot camp coming up. We have a couple different ones like Word Camp, which is where you are now, which is for writing novels. Script Camp is dedicated to screenwriting. Word Camp, Script Camp, they're all part of this same group of servers. So we hoped that you would join us by going to our website and signing up for unlimited membership, which includes access to absolutely every class, workshop, and event on every single server. You never have to worry, can I join that event? Because you always can. But in any case, even if you don't, you can still join us for the free events, swaps, genre groups, meetups. Like 85% of things on the server are still open to everybody. But if you want to really buckle down and get serious about your writing, it's a great idea to sign up for membership just to get access to these boot camps that go all the way from beginning to end of a draft. So as for me, I'm primarily a screenwriter, which is why Script Camp is our biggest server, though I've been writing more and more novels these past couple of years, and I'm now starting my 7th novel. Have not yet been published, but I mostly write in the world of sci-fi, fantasy, horror, historicals, and action-adventure type of stuff. I do not write contemporary or romance or comedic or these things. Mostly genre writing, as I would call it. But in any case, I teach the boot camps and the weekly labs. You can find 2 labs a week on Fridays from 12 to 2 and Saturdays from 4 to 6, where you can bring your questions, topics that you want to ask about, and also pages in progress if you want to get feedback on your work. Okay, so we mentioned November is NaNoWriMo. Millions of writers around the world are trying to complete a novel of at least 50 to 100,000 words in November. We are starting this program in coincidence with NaNoWriMo, but we're not actually affiliated with them. It's just a time where a lot of people like to start working on books or thinking more seriously about that book that they've had an idea for a long time, but they never have gotten around to actually writing it. So now just seemed like a natural way to line it up. Whoops. So whether you are sticking or you're using the NaNoWriMo dates or not, maybe you're just starting plotting or planning your book now or something like this, and you're a little bit behind the program, because we just did our last 4 classes on NaNoWriMo prep on getting your book in ship shape and making sure your outline is all there and your premise is there and your characters are there and all those basics. We are just jumping directly into writing the book in this course. So hopefully you've done your planning in advance. If not, you can go back and watch some of those other previous classes or even our prior bootcamp intro courses if you want to get some information on just how to structure your book or things like this. And we will have various recaps and various other ways of exploring those topics throughout the course, but we are sort of working under the assumption that you're starting pages today. So here's everything coming up. Coding classes will be December 6th, Fridays at 8 a.m. on Code Camp. Short Film Bootcamp also starts December 6th, Fridays 11 a.m. on Film Camp. We have 3 currently running boot camps. We have Fridays for features, 6 to 8 p.m. Novels, Saturdays, 12 to 2. And Sundays is TV from 11 to 1. Multiple labs, advanced labs. You can see everything here. I won't read it all out. But we've got plenty going on, so please do join us. If you're just watching us or just learning about us for the first time, you can go to scriptcamp.net to read more or to sign up for membership. Okay, so looking at the preview of everything coming up, we have, this is like week 0 today. So we're looking at the idea of first pages. We might be looking at log lines, or if you're just sort of pitching what your book is for the first time, we'll probably just go down the list and ask, what is everybody writing? And maybe you want to sort of pitch it to us, explain it to us, tell us how it works, who the main character is, what they're trying to do, just the basics of the story in that way. We're going to try to set your daily or weekly word count goals as well, so we're making forward progress with a lot of momentum. And we're starting this thing this year where you change your username to include your current word count. And so like your current progress out of your total. So if you're like 5,000 out of 90,000 words in, then you would just put that at the end of your username. Nacho has already done so. And when I start, I actually have 2 different outlines I'm juggling between. So I'm not actually right on par with the course, but I'll probably be starting a new book in the next 2 weeks. I will be doing the same and updating my username to include my progress. So we invite you to do the same. Okay, so we're looking at first pages today. We'll read a few first pages. We'll look at what you should do on your first pages, how to hook a reader, what are the goals, what are we trying to achieve, and what are some best practices here. Info dumping is always this huge question, especially in sci-fi fantasy, so I'll kind of tackle some topics that are related to my genres of choice and the ways that we kind of get into those stories most of the time. If you have your own genre specialty, maybe you want to tell us how your genre typically opens in the first few pages. You can see the preview of everything that we have coming up. We have 12 classes. This goes all the way to January 25th. First draft done by February 1st, so all the way at the end of 3 months from now. You have November, December, and all of January. So 3 months to write your entire book. Every week is going to focus on a different topic within the book, but sort of covering different broad areas like point of view, emotional impacts, heroes, villains, and sidekicks is the character week. That's week 2. You can read the preview of everything coming up here. I won't read it out loud, but you can see that the expectation is you're writing about 5,000 to 10,000 words a week. That means about 1,000 words a day on the shorter end, or 2,000 words a day on the high end. Even if you're just writing on weekdays, I recommend if you can't make at least 1,000 words a day, then you might want to adjust part of your process or figure out is something stopping you, or is there like a little bit later you can go to bed, or a little earlier you can get up, or can you change your schedule in some way? I would try to adjust so you can write at least 1,000 words per weekday. If you can't maintain that pace, it's going to be a real pain to write novels. Maybe you could write children's books at the sub 20,000 word kind of space, less than 1,000 words a day, and actually make a career of it. But typically, if you want to make a job of this, you got to be able to write 1,000 words a day. If you skip every other day, you're like 2,000 words every other day, something like that. You can work it out. Like there's no actual rule. It's just a rule of thumb to keep your momentum high and keep you moving forward and stay productive. You need to be consistently writing in order to be a novelist. Okay, what else? So yeah, you can see everything coming up there, and we also are we're wrapping querying and editing in the same week on January 25th. Though I have in previous years looked at querying even within the first few weeks, because I think writing a query letter is a great way to kind of orient yourself, make sure that the fundamentals of your book are working, and to figure out what to focus on. Because no matter how much is going on in your book, you kind of have to present that really clear version of the A story in that query letter. So maybe actually, now that I think of it, we'll look at a few queries I've written today, just in the past few weeks even, just trying to, I haven't written the books yet, but these are queries that I've written in an almost exploratory way to try to figure out the story and figure out what to focus on, what to hinge everything around. Maybe we'll save that for one of the non-public weeks, though. I'll decide as it comes to me. We have a poll in the chat that says either you're interested or not sure or have questions regarding this upcoming bootcamp. So use those little blue numbers to vote if you would like, and you can tell us if you plan to sign up, or if not, maybe you have some question or some concern. You can let us know. Thank you for that, Nacho. For anyone who doesn't know, Nacho is our co-founder who runs many different groups and events on the server. Okay, so let's get started with just some basics. So, well, you can tell us, are you ready to start your pages? If not, where are you in your outlining? Or if you have started, what is your current word count? Are you hitting any hurdles or blocks, or is there something stopping you that we can help you with in terms of boosting you forward and getting you started, getting you going on your book? Maybe I'll just get us started by telling you guys the 2 books that I'm sort of still touching up and trying to decide between, and then I will open it to the room. I'll just go down the lists, and you can tell us about your project. You don't have to have it like perfectly presentable right now, but whatever you want to share. So I'll start. So I'm trying to decide between 2 different books. I have a premise for a young adult sci-fi called Emissaries, which is about 2 teenagers that end up becoming the ambassadors from Earth to an alien council, and they have to sort of represent Earth's interests despite both their conflicting government agendas and their blossoming romance. And then so I have a full outline for that, about 30 pages of full scene cards, so really, really detailed scene cards. I could get even more detailed with it, but I'm pretty much ready to start that one. And then beyond that, I have a young adult fantasy called Squires, Book 1, Curse Boy. And Curse Boy is about a kid who becomes a squire to an abusive knight that uses him essentially as a human shield. It, like, pushes him in front of him to test for traps, and all the cursed items that he steals, he gives them to the Curse Boy. So the Curse Boy takes all the curses instead of him. And the kid is trying to essentially escape his servitude from this mean knight that's also kind of a father figure. Sort of a complicated relationship between them, but he has to learn to understand and start to weaponize his own curses, like get them to interact with each other, synergize his curses, get them to cancel out, and ultimately try to earn his freedom. Okay, that's the books I'm working between. I have outlines for both of them, but I haven't fully committed to one or the other yet. I'm still just adding things here or there to those 2 outlines, but I do have scene cards of a fashion for both. And I'm just kind of waiting until one of them jumps out and says, that's definitely the one. It's probably Emissaries, but I always back off a little bit just before committing, and I outline a few other things just to sort of make sure. It's like the hall pass, you know. I'm just have to be sure. Okay, so let's go down the list in the class, though. Let's ask, what are you working on? Are you ready to start your pages? What's your progress? What's your word count? What do you plan to write? What have you read lately that you think is awesome? Things like this. Whatever you want to share. Let's start with Becky.
Hello. Mine is a middle grade novel about Tabby, an 11-year-old, and her ghost sister and their new shape-shifting animal Puka friend, who release a dangerous necromancer when he promises to bring her ghost sister back to life.
Great. And where's your progress at, would you say?
I should be writing today, and instead I've been writing a screenplay, because why not? My progress is at I've written the first quarter, but I am currently redoing my outline. I'm in an unusual case in that I have an editor, and I'm visiting the publisher in 3 weeks today, and they want my outline, so I'm just making it human worthy,
right,
readable.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have to pitch 2 other ideas to them. So I was hoping if we had time at the end, if I could run pitches for those 2 past you. 2 or 3, they said.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else you want to share? Things you've read lately?
I don't really read while I am writing because I find it interferes with my, but I have been watching Agatha all along, which is kind of witchcraft, which is similar, like, world to mine. So that's been helpful, and I definitely recommend it to people. It's not your typical Marvel show. It's really good. And I would also add, it's the correct way to do girl power.
That is on Disney, right?
Yeah, Disney Plus.
Got it. Thank you for that, Becky.
But yeah, I'm not obviously officially following your trajectory because I have my own deadlines that I'm solely not meeting.
That's all good. Thank you for that. Let's hear from Cass.
Was that me? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, hi. I have started working on my novel. As far as goes, the Megan was helping with the log line, and it's basically when an autistic introvert student exposed to the seductive world of a brash extrovert, she becomes plagued by dreams or past life memories of a recurring disasters, romantic affairs, and must choose between her own ambition and epic love. And basically, the character is her name is Violet. She's out under her father's thumb for the first time, and she's trying to find who she is and everything. And it's basically it's about her having these recurring dreams, which is actually her past life, and she has to make a choice and figure out if she's going to go for what she wants, which is this love of her life, which always ends in tragedy from what her dreams are telling her, or does she walk away and do her own thing, and that also could be a tragedy. So it's a really kind of a figuring out who you are and coming not necessarily coming of age, but coming into your own terms in your own life and making your own decisions, going against societal norms and figuring out based on that.
Okay, great. And what's your progress?
I'm hard of hearing, so I have
That's okay. My question was, what's your progress? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I hear you fine. I was just asking, how far along are you in the book?
Almost 7,000 words.
Okay, great. So yeah, if you want, you can update your username to include your word count. You can see a few people here have done it already. Yes, nice applause from the room.
I will do that right now.
Great. All right. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Let's keep going. Megan, go ahead.
I have to unmute. Sorry about that. I'm working on something currently. It just has a working title. The working title is terrible. The working title is currently Orange Blues. We're a neurodivergent historic preservationist. Unwittingly releases a devious supernatural entity. She must master a banishing ritual with the help of the most insufferable man she knows before the creature murders them.
All right, awesome. And how's your progress?
I'll tell you in 1 second exactly officially where my progress is. My progress is officially 31,302.
Great. Okay, is that how far is that? Is that about halfway?
That is just past the halfway point. I think this one's going to be about 30 chapters total, which puts us just past the halfway point. I am now into the 16th chapter.
Great. All right, awesome.
How many words is that?
Oh, it's going to be about 6,000 total. This one's about 32,000 words. I think it's going to be about shorter than the first novel I wrote. But the first novel was multiple POV, and it had 2 MacGuffins. And this one is single POV and has, 1 MacGuffin but 2 stories combined.
Great. Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty short for an adult book, but that means you'll probably finish by the deadline. So it's great.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's not that short for romance or thriller, which is sort of
That's
where
true.
this lies.
Yeah, romance can be a bit short, like around the 60,000 word is not that uncommon for romance. We most of the time would consider in the novel length of word count, it's going to be 50,000 and up. Just this is not for Megan, but for everybody. So whether you're writing young adult or middle grade, you still probably want to aim for that 40 to 50,000 word range at the minimum. There is sort of an upper limit in terms of like 100K for YA. Middle grade is probably even lower limit nowadays. These aren't really hard limits, and it kind of
I was
depends
going
on.
to say,
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, my editor wants me to aim for 35 to 40K for middle grade, and I'm on the higher end. Unfortunately, middle grade is getting lower and lower and lower and lower. Although I would say aim higher and cut.
Yeah.
Because that's like, so I was getting really worked up about my word counts, and my editor noticed that I was shortening everything, like not really going into detail. And she said, don't worry about word limits. That's what we're there for.
Right.
So you're better off writing longer and working with an editor or a beta reader on where to cut it down, because you can always cut it down.
That's kind of the opposite of where I'm at right now, which is I want to keep the pace brisk. I don't want to over detail things. And so in keeping the pace brisk, I'd rather fall to the short side of what there is rather than feeling like I've padded it.
Makes sense.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you for your updates. Seems like you're making great progress.
But yeah, I mean, good progress. Just even in the last few days, and did all the rewrites based on your suggestions yesterday. So thank you.
Sure.
Really good suggestions.
All right. Thanks, Megan. Let's hear from Michelle.
Hey, I was just opening up my document and I'm trying to find out what my word count is. Give me just a second.
Okay, I can come back to you if you just need a minute.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I'll come back. Let's hear from Nacho.
1,433 words in. Finished the first chapter, and I kind of went back to try to. We talked about this at the lab, but basically, like, it's like a kind of a creepy sort of atmospheric description of stuff that's this character is experiencing, but at the same time, it's a teenager, and I felt like, his thoughts, it just felt like the voice didn't fit with the description because, how a teenager might think of things versus like, so anyways, just talking through it, it seemed to make more sense to give him the sort of like, he's looking back on these moments after all this terrible stuff happened, and he's in jail, and it seems like he's older, a lot more mature. We don't know exactly how old he is while he's telling the story, but by the end we learn that he became his father, like his soul got sucked into his father's body, and he's in jail awaiting execution as he's like telling the story. But I still don't know who he's telling it to exactly, so
right.
I have to kind of figure out some things. But I feel like that really helped to kind of just make the voice fit a little better.
Great. Yeah, I wanted to actually address that question of who are they telling the story to in our first page's discussion today, because I was going to read from A Confusion of Princes by Garth Nix, in which we really clearly established this is who this is supposed to be for, and like even though it's in this very kind of info dumpy kind of voice, it makes a lot of sense because you're like, oh no, he's literally leaving this for somebody to read. Like it can make sense to have some info dumping at the beginning if it's in character. So yeah, it seems like you are set on or you figured some things out about your idea. If you're 1,400 words in, you've got a good start. And anything you've read lately that you want to share? I know you're a big reader.
I loved Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Great book. A little bit slow in part of the second act, but it's just really worth reading. Great story.
I've been hearing a lot about that one.
I started reading The Deep by Nick Cutter, and JT recommended I Was a Teenage Slasher, which is by Stephen Graham Jones, and it's like a similar kind of setup where it's like after this person went on a murdering rampage or something, but now they're telling the story. So it'd be helpful to kind of like see how that writer does it.
Sure. Great. Yeah, the in the horror lit world, there's kind of a trend these days for very like movie-ish books. You may have seen a couple of these lately. Basically, novel versions of horror movies.
Well, horror movie was a great one.
Including a book just called
horror
movie. But like, yeah, the authors that write these are Grady Hendrix, Paul Tremblay, and what was the one you just mentioned? The
Nick Cutter.
Nick Cutter, yeah, exactly. They're basically writing horror movies as novels, and they feel like designed to be adapted, basically. I don't know if they'll ever adapt some of them, but and hopefully not the deep, because that sounds too scary. I can't do deep ocean. Okay, thank you for that update, Nacho. Let's hear from Lenny. Hi. So, do you want to, maybe you can tell us what you're working on? Go ahead.
I'm working on a sci-fi story, and I have 20,000 words, but I don't know what I'm doing.
You don't know what you're doing? Okay, so did you just sort of start pantsing it without an outline, or how did you approach it?
Well, I started writing like mini chapters for it before I actually like came up with making it into a novel. So I'm just trying to fit those in there. And yeah, that's mostly what I'm doing.
Okay, that might work. A bunch of short stories that you connect into a novel there's actually a name for this. It's called a stitch-up novel. And these have worked in the past. It can be pretty hard to make everything sort of like make sense, though, so you may have to sort of take a step back, evaluate what you have, and then write an outline for the novel version of it that sort of allows you to plan a little bit better. From just connecting some short stories, it might give you some ideas as to where a book might go, but chances are, after taking your first pass through it, you'll have to kind of pause and reassess and re-outline a little bit. That would just be my guess.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. Let's hear from Michelle. Are you able to tell us your progress now?
Yes. It's 75,023 words.
That's your progress, or that's the total?
No, that's the total. And those are the total words. I'm sorry, so you have written 75,000 words, or the outline accounts for the book being 75,000 words? Are you saying... Go ahead. Doing fine. I thought we were talking about pages. We're talking about your progress that you've made so far. So how much have you written versus how long is the book going to be? Okay, it's 75,023 words. I honestly don't know how long it's going to be, but it's sci-fi, but it's a debut novel. I'm thinking, honestly, it's going to be about 120,000 words because it's sci-fi, but I think that's upper limit, right? For a debut, yeah, it's pushing it. I mean, it might be publishable if it's like super compellingly written and it feels like you've edited everything that you can. Yeah, but 120 is a good amount to aim for a sci-fi. Okay, but I mean, maybe this isn't going to be my debut. I mean, I may, I have a feeling that I'm going to like, once I get like my first few novels published, then this is going to be like, like book 5 or something that gets published. That makes sense. Yeah, that would be fine then. You could shoot for the stars then, so to speak, if that's the case. It doesn't matter how long it is, really. And I'm leaning towards mostly being a romance writer, and that this would probably be under like some other name, Okay. So yeah, that happens. You can do that. So this is just. Even though I love sci-fi, this is just born out of an idea that I encountered in a government class, and I just said, "That's a great idea for a novel," and so I kind of kept on the back burner for a long time and decided to pull this up because for some reason I was stalled on my other romance novel. So anyway, that's it. And,
Okay.
and anything else you want to know?
No, that'll do it. Thank you for the updates.
Oh, sure, no problem. Hope y'all had a fun Halloween.
Yeah, I stayed home and watched movies and ate candy. So the adult Halloween didn't go to any parties.
We did that, and we also went and got a delicious barbecue, and we shared a margarita.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Low key. All right. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So let's get into first page stuff. So we are looking today at introduction. That means that we can read out loud from first pages of a couple books. Maybe just grab a book and you can read us the first few paragraphs today. We'll have a segment for that. We'll give you some tips for writing the book in 90 days. How many words should you write? Setting your daily and weekly goals. We'll look at first pages in different genres and different promises that you're setting in different genres in those first few pages and what is our specific objective. And then towards the end, we will have workshop and lab period, which I have on the schedule, potentially write your opening paragraph or post first page if it's ready. We'll probably actually wait on that for next week. But in any case, we will have just open lab, which means that you can come forward with whatever questions you have. Maybe you're not sure about your log line and you think it needs some work, or maybe you have a story, like a plot issue. Maybe you have a one sheet that needs to be reviewed or something like that. So we'll save about at least the last half hour of class for lab time. Let's get into first page stuff. So to begin with, just to recap, these are like general guidelines for word counts for different genres and different age groups. This is not incredibly consistent, and this changes over the years. So like stuff you see 10 or 20 years ago are not necessarily going to be the same nowadays. But in any case, on the higher end, we have sci-fi, fantasy, and historical, which are going to involve a lot of world building and going to cap out at around like 110 to 120. We have in the middle range thriller, mystery, and crime, which oftentimes will be in that kind of 90 to 100 range, but even shorter is okay, especially in young adults. If you're writing young adult thrillers, for instance, then like 70 to 90 is a fine spot to be. Literary is really broad. Like literary can be everything from the incredibly short end, think of a book like The Alchemist, all the way to something like a big tome from David Foster Wallace. Like those are both literary. It would probably be on the lower end around 50 or 60, and on the higher end, at least for a debut, around 110 to 120. You can see most of these, for debuts especially, you're going to be in a better spot writing under 120. Romance is on the shorter end, and as was mentioned, even 50 to 60 is like a fine length for that, especially if you're doing young adult or middle grade romance. Then you're going to be on like the 20 to 40 kind of range. And then if you're writing chapter books or picture books, then it's even lower than 20. I can't exactly speak too much to that world of like younger children's, but if anybody can, then feel free to speak up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So picture books, depending on the age, you'd be looking at less than 250, sometimes as short as 100 for really young. But some picture books go up to 8-year-olds, so for them you could get away with maybe 300, maybe even 400 words, like a short story. Chapter books, you're looking at between 10 and 15K, depending on whether you're looking at early readers, in which case it could be as small as 8K, or whether you're looking at more advanced. And when we say more advanced, we are talking about like 7, 8, 9-year-olds.
Right.
You can go up to 20K for like a 9-year-old.
Thank you for that. Yeah, age group of your reader if you don't know already, it matters so much. It affects a lot of choices that you make here, more than you might be even thinking. It's when a lot of people start writing, they're sort of just like, well, it's just for whoever wants to read it, I guess, right? And no, you have to know who you want to specifically read this. It affects where they shelve the book. It affects the agent that you'll query. It affects a lot. So it affects the language that you'll use, the topics that you'll cover, the complexity of the thoughts.
And even as simple as thinking about the reading ability of the person, and I'm not just talking about kids lit here, although that does come into effect. like if you're writing a more complex story with more complex wording, but in middle grade, you're aiming at confident readers, right? But even with adult, you look at someone like Dan Brown, that's just a really easy read. Like the words on the page are easy read. They are written for like everyone, compared to say, the guy who wrote The Road,
McCarthy.
Yeah, far more experienced readers.
Right. Yes, exactly. And that's to say nothing about the marketability of the book. Like, really complex novels have been massive hit bestsellers. Really simply written novels have been massive hit bestsellers. So you can pull off any style well. You can make anything work. It won't always be a big hit, but like it is possible that you can succeed no matter what you're writing. So to find your word count, you might maybe just pick one of these numbers here based on your genre and age group, and you can divide by 90 to get your daily goal, divide by 12 to get your weekly goal. So if I'm writing 80,000 word books, I write about 10,000 words a week, so I can expect to finish in 8 weeks. Simple, right? How about you guys? What's your weekly word count goal?
With NaNoWriMo, it's gone up really, really high. My weekly is 10 pages a day because I'm trying to get this written during November. So,
how many words are on a page?
Huh?
How many words are on your pages?
I guess it's probably 250.
250 on your on an 8.5 by 11 page on 12.5. It would probably be more like 500 to 600.
Okay, I don't know.
I see. This is why I think word count is a little more useful to use than page count, because page count could be anything, right? Like depending on your font and the size of the text and the spacing between the letters, it just doesn't tell us very much. So in order to estimate, you could maybe set a word goal rather than a page goal. I think it would be more helpful.
Well, that's why I was saying that that my word goal is 120K. But I thought you asked what is how many I thought you asked how many pages am I planning on?
Oh no, no, we only talk word count when it comes to books. We don't really talk pages.
Okay, so like I said, you were asked what is my my word goal? How much am I planning to write each week? And so I guess 10 pages a day. I don't know. And you said like 500 on a page. Is that what you said?
If it's single space 12-point font, then usually it's around there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is double spaced because that's what it's supposed to be for if you're going to present it to an editor, right, or to an agent.
Manuscript format is usually double spaced, yeah. But when I write single spaced, and then I format it later personally. But in any case, you can check your manuscript if you want to get the specific numbers.
Okay. So, I just, okay, so, like I said, I was thinking in terms of pages, so, 500 on a page from 10 pages, so that's 5,000 a day, so yeah, I guess 5,000 a day, and then times 7, so 35,000 a week then.
So that's an insanely high pace. I don't think even most professional authors write that much.
Well, I'm thinking back when my when I was in college, and then my only writing, my first writing job I wrote 10 pages a day, but I was wiped out, and I'm thinking there's no way I can do that, and maybe I just can't finish the novel during November, but I was really trying my best.
Well, I would just set your goal a little lower. If you already have 75,000 words written, then you are much more than halfway there. I would just slow down a little bit. Maybe aim for 1 to 2,000 a day, or at 3 would be like a really high pace as well, maybe 2 to 3 at the most.
Okay. Well, then maybe that's what I'll do because, you know, I was just thinking I'm trying to get this all done by November, and so then I can start on my other novels in December, and yeah. So,
Okay.
but this.
Got it. Thank you for that update. Nacho has also listed his word count goals in the chat. He's posted is 90,000 words, 1,400 written. Goal is 1,000 a day, or 7,500 a week. All right, awesome. That's a 1K a day, very sustainable goal. I recommend aiming for most people around there as the baseline. 2,000 would be like, yeah, that's a fast, strong pace. 3,000 would be like, whoa, dude, holy crap, are you sure that's sustainable? Anything more than 3, you're literally superhuman. But it's up to you. If you can do it, do it. Okay, let's keep going. Feel free to also let us know in the chat what your goal is or how much you're trying to get done per week. So before we take us through the story, I'm actually just going to preview this because I'm going to say this is an option that we have coming up. And this will be in a couple slides, so I first want to go through first page of stuff, but then we will look at taking us through the whole story. That means that you can explain the story of your book to us in about 3 minutes. If you feel that you're ready to do that. It's not super easy to do for most authors because they get hung up on stuff. They spend too long on certain things. You have to skip over a lot and summarize a lot, and you have to know your story. So it helps to have a very strong outline, or at least a super strong sense of what you're doing. So you don't have to do this today if you don't want to. But if you think that you want to, or think that you're ready and want to get feedback on it, I would start prepping for that because I will call for those pretty soon to see if anyone is interested. Okay, let's go into first page stuff first, though. Opening hooks. So I'm going to start by just reading one off. I'm going to read from the preview of Confusion of Princes by Garth Nix, which is a young adult sci-fi book. And here we go. We'll just read the free sample off Amazon, which includes the first page. I think I can stream this, can't I? Nacho, tell me if I can't stream this.
This is an interesting question for copyright attorneys, to be honest. I mean, you're streaming the free sample, so if anyone goes to that, they would be able to see it on Amazon.com. Yeah, so I guess it's okay, but
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I will take that. I will take full legal responsibility if this is.
I am not a lawyer.
Okay.
Just.
Okay, I think it's
fine. This is not legal advice.
Obviously, I'm from the UK, but in the UK, it is fine for education purposes to share stuff that is, or through streaming, that is readily available on the internet that anyone can access free of charge.
So if you want to sue us, address your letter to Becky.
Yeah,
please.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyone but me. Okay, let's just get started. So I won't even tell you what this book is about. I'm just going to read the first page or two up until the narrator kind of gets into why he's telling the story. And I chose this one specifically because oftentimes we hear this advice that info dumping is bad. Information overload. The reader can't understand all this information. They don't want to sit there and hear about your world at the very beginning, which largely, yes, that is true, if you do it badly. But if you do it well, in an entertaining and fun and hooky way with character voice, with a genuinely interesting world that you focus on the cool parts of it, you don't bore us with the boring parts. You start with the cool parts and preview what we're going to encounter in the story, then you can actually pull off this type of intro very well. So that's why I wanted to pull this one today, just to show that there are ways to do information at the beginning in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming or annoying or boring. It's actually just as fun as anything else. You don't always have to start in a scene. Though, most of the time nowadays, the advice will be err on the side of start with a scene rather than erring on the side of information. But let's just read it. Let's hear it out loud. I'm going to zoom in here. Okay. I've died 3 times, and 3 times been reborn, though I'm not yet 20 in the old Earth years by which it's still the fashion to measure time. This is the story of my 3 deaths, and my life between. My name is Kemry, though this is not the name my parents gave me. I don't know who my parents are, and never will, for I was taken from them as a baby. This is one of the secrets the Empire keeps well. No prince may ever know his or her parents, or the world of their birth. Even trying to find out is forbidden, which just about sums up the paradox of being a prince. We have vast power and seemingly limitless authority, except when we try to exercise that power or authority beyond the bounds that have been set for us. It's still about 1,000,000 times better than being... One second. Where's my... Here it is. It's about 1,000,000 times better than being an ordinary imperial subject, mind you. It just isn't everything that I thought it was going to be when I was a child. A prince candidate being carefully raised in considerable ignorance in my remote temple. So I'm one of the 10 million princes who rule the empire, the largest political entity in recorded history or current knowledge. The empire extends across a vast swath of the galaxy, encompassing more than 17 million systems, tens of millions of inhabited worlds, and trillions of sentient subjects, most of them humans of old Earth stock. It is imperial policy that all these mostly planet-bound yokel types know as little as possible about the apparently godlike beings who rule them. Even our enemies, the alien Sad Eyes, the enigmatic Deaders, and the Nanic rebels know more of us than our own people. The ordinary folk think we're immortal, which is natural enough when they typically have something like their grandmother's nice commemorative stereo sculpture of a good-looking young prince on the family mantelpiece. And then they see the same prince handing out Grower of the Month awards at the annual Harvest Festival or whatever. It would be the same prince, too, because while we're not actually immortal, if we get killed, we mostly get reborn into an identical adult body. It's a technical difference, I guess. And it's only mostly reborn. Our enemies know that we do not always come back from the dead. To have died 3 times, like me, is no big deal for a prince of the empire. There's others who have died 9, 12, 20 times and still walk among our ranks. There are even princely societies where you have to have died a certain number of times to join. Like the 9 Death Lifers. Bunch of idiots, if you ask me, all suicidal for 8 deaths, then super cautious afterwards. Who'd want to join that society? I skipped a little past it. There it is. Particularly since you never know if you are going to be reborn. It's up to the emperor, and every now and then a dead prince's name just vanishes from the list without explanation. And if you're dumb enough to make inquiries, you meet a lot of blank-eyed priests who don't know anything, and a weird kind of absence of anything about that dead prince if you directly ask the imperial mind. But before I get into my whole life story and all, let me take you through the bare facts of my childhood. I'm presuming you're not an imperial prince, which you better not be, or I'll have wasted all these careful preparations that are supposed to make this record detonate with a ridiculously large antimatter explosion if it's accessed by any kind of prince sensory augmentation. I guess not recording it in the first place would be more secure, but I have my reasons. Okay, we'll finish up there. So, you can see lots and lots of information here, delivered very quickly, but in character voice. You get the sense of the person speaking, and also an explanation of whom they are actually telling the story to whom they are actually telling the story, or why they are telling the story. In this case, it's sort of a mystery. We're sort of reading to figure out, well, why are you recording this? He, in fact, sort of holds back the reason why. He says, I have my reasons. He knows whom he does not want to read this. So we sort of get the idea that he's leaving this for a non-prince to read, maybe for a specific person, or maybe this is just so somebody can kind of know the truth behind the story, because you get the sense of how much secrecy there is surrounding the princely system, right? And how much that average people don't really know. So you get the sense this is maybe sort of a tell-all that is going to be leaving behind the actual accounts of what really happened. Okay, let's open the floor to these questions here. I'm going to zoom this out. Zoop. There we go. So, what happens? Is it a scene or narration alone? What's the point of the conflict? What questions are raised? What expectations or promises are set, and how? What is the tone and voice? And what else do you notice? Anybody want to take a stab at one of these questions for the hook we just read from Confusion of Princes?
Expectations and promises are that we learn about how what it's like for him to be a prince, and that how many times he's died, and that there's a very interesting society where you have to have died a certain number of times to be in that group, and that's interesting. So never heard of anything like that. I mean, there are some interesting societies around, but that's unique. Never heard of that.
So I think what you're getting at is the promise is that we will further explore the society that he's telling us about.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That he introduces the fact that he's a prince and he's died several times, and and then we learn about that very interesting society, and so the promise is that we're going to learn about what it means to be a prince in this world, and I guess what it's like to die this many times,
Sure.
and that it's a requirement to have died so many times as a prince,
Mm-hmm.
So that right there has me hooked. I'm thinking, I got to know more about this. I'm, you know, um, why do you have to have died so many times to, as a prince? Why is that necessary? So are you a zombie?
Right. So expectations might be this is going to be a deep exploration of a completely alien society from ours, and that this book is going to involve unraveling the nuances of that society or learning all of its rules.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So now it kind of makes me wonder about, well, what kind of promises and expectations did I set from the beginning of my sci-fi novel? Although maybe I can answer that because it begins with Elise is, telling her class about gamma ray bursts.
Okay, yep. The first pages are a great time to set those expectations or set the sort of emotional expectations of what this story is going to feel like or things like this, the topics, the subject matter that you're going to delve into. Let's hear from anyone else on the... So we'll be glad to look more at individual books during the open lab, but let's hear about this one still. Go ahead. Was that Megan?
Yeah. My expectations are there's going to be political intrigue. There's going to be a correlation between the three deaths and the reason for them in some fashion, and that is going to create a combination of mystery and action that we're going to get in addition to exploration of world.
Great. Yeah, for sure. This feels like very political conflict. Go ahead.
That's basically it. I'm expecting political intrigue. I'm expecting a certain amount of action, and I'm expecting not for it to add up right away, but for there to be a mysterious reason that the three deaths are connected.
Yeah. Would you expect also... Here's a question. Would you expect that this takes place on one world, or that this is a big scope story that takes place on lots of worlds?
I'm expecting it to take place on multiple worlds because he mentions how many damn worlds there are.
Yeah. Trillions of sentient entities throughout the Empire.
And I'm also expecting then to see what the difference between the basic human stock and the other entities are.
Yeah. Are they
so you get the promise of, but that's part of world exploration.
Right. We get the sense we might meet characters that aren't aliens of some kind or something like that.
May I say something?
Go ahead.
What I was going to say is what hooked me the most in the promise and expectation I got was the fact that he's going against the rules in society and he's telling, obviously, like you said, someone outside, and it seems like he's telling someone that's not supposed to know. So my curiosity piqued on why he's doing that, if he's part of this said society or these princes of the death. Also, as far as goes, what his motivation is to do that. So I want to know why he's doing that. He's explained everything, the society, how it goes, the multiple worlds, but he's going against all of that. And I want to know the one reason, if not multiple reasons, why he's doing that. The main focus, the main cause of why he does that. That's what got me hooked. Is almost the idea that he's trying to do something either for the good of the people or for the bad. I'm sorry, the good of the society that he's in, or even against the society he's in, or both. So that's what intrigued me.
Right. Good point. So it raises a lot of questions as to his motives for telling the story. And also we get the sense that he's questioning a lot. Perhaps he even mentions that questioning things is frowned upon, but he seems to be doing a lot of it already. Is he subversive? Is he a rebel? Is he an outcast? Is he a prisoner? Makes you wonder. He seems to stand in opposition to this, or at least he doesn't feel weird about calling it dumb or calling it weird. So makes you wonder. Anyone else?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's just do one or two of these for now. Does somebody want to grab a book and read the opening page or so?
I have one ready.
Okay, you can
And
start.
also, I grabbed 3, so you go first, Becky, and then I'll go.
Okay,
That's cool.
we'll do Becky, then Megan, and that's all we'll do today, just because we have a lot to get to. But so Becky, you're going to read it out. Maybe tell us the title, genre, and age group first, and then we'll try to answer some of these questions. Go for it.
Okay, so it's quite a famous one. It's called Inkheart. It's middle grade fiction. What did you say? The genre, the title.
That's all. I think this was a movie as well with Brendan Fraser, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was a book first. It was first published by Chicken House.
Great.
That's why I picked it.
Okay. Go for it.
Rain fell that night, a fine, whispering rain. Many years later, Meggie had only to close her eyes, and she could still hear it, like tiny fingers tapping on the window pane. A dog barked somewhere in the darkness, and however often she tossed and turned, Maggie couldn't get to sleep. The book she had been reading was under her pillow, pressing its covers against her ear, as if to lure her back into its printed pages. I'm sure it must be very comfortable sleeping with a hard, rectangular thing like that under your head, her father had teased the first time he had found a book under her pillow. Go on, admit it. The book whispers its stories to you at night. Sometimes, yes, Maggie had said, but it only works for children, which made Mo tweak his nose. Mo. Maggie had never called her father anything else. That night, when so much began and so many things changed forever, Maggie had one of her favourite books under her pillow, and since the rain wouldn't let her sleep, she sat up, rubbed the drowsiness from her eyes, and took it out. Its pages rustled promisingly when she opened it. Maggie thought this first whisper sounded a little different from one book to another, depending on whether or not she already knew the story it was going to tell her. But she needed light. She had a box of matches hidden in the drawer of her bedside table. Mo had forbidden her to light the candles at night. He didn't like fire. Fire devours books, he'd always said. But she was 12 years old. She could surely be trusted to keep an eye on a couple of candle flames. Maggie loved to read by candlelight. She had five candlesticks on the windowsill, and she was just holding the lightened match out to one of the black wicks when she heard footsteps outside. She blew out the match in alarm. Oh, how well she remembered it, even many years later, and knelt to look out of the window, which was wet with rain. Then she saw him.
All right, thanks for that. Let's go back to our questions. So I'll take a couple of, or I'll just answer one to begin with, then I'll open to everybody else. So to me, a couple key points of interest. One is the idea that it seems to, in this omniscient retrospective voice, it seems to be saying something momentous happened this night. Even one of the first lines was like, many years later she remembered the blank and blank, which sort of is saying that something important happened here. Even though it's not telling us what exactly happened yet, it's sort of leading up to a key moment in the first chapter. Another point of interest would be the relationship between the girl and her dad. She never called him anything but his first name. Is kind of an interesting question. Like, why would that be? That's kind of an unusual dynamic in most Western worlds, or much of the Western English-speaking world. Makes you wonder, is this like a stepdad situation? Are they kind of distant in a way, or does he prefer that for some reason, perhaps? And I think ultimately we get this expectation that this story is going to revolve around other stories or books themselves. It seems like it's kind of building up the importance and magic of stories, and like kind of suggesting that they might be able to like bleed into your consciousness or something like that. So I get the feeling that this is going to be a fantasy, contemporary fantasy, perhaps portal fantasy.
Can I also add,
Sure.
I purposefully chose this for Nacho because he was asking about how to do a future voice looking back, and that's what this was. So I chose it for you, Nacho.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We have a couple comments I just want to address from YouTube and Twitch. Hi, guys. Susan on YouTube says, I'm working on a YA action novel about a Hollywood child playing a role as a spy, which was her mother's secret life. I've already started NaNoWriMo yesterday. I'm 3,000 words today. Wow, 3,000 words today? That's great. So you're right on the ball. Nice work, Susan. And we have Bill's Clan on Twitch who just says, Yo, Bill, you should come join us on Discord, scriptcamp.net. You can get the link to join our live and interactive class. We do these every Saturday from 12 to 2, and we just wrapped up our nano prep, and now we're diving into the actual writing. So we'd love to have you. Anyone else want to speak up on the first page of Inkheart?
I mean,
Are we looking at this so we can evaluate what we've written against other professionally published works?
Yeah, in a sense, I think we're always doing that. But you don't have to compare your own work right now. Like, I would just be analyzing what we see in front of us, or what we just heard, I guess I would say. So what is the voice and tone? What else? And just anything we notice about it.
For me,
cleverly.
oh, go on.
I think I heard Megan. Go ahead.
It's also cleverly constructed so that the first page ends with a cliffhanger.
Yeah, then she saw him.
Right, and it's making you want to immediately read page 2.
Right, yes. Really important to set the idea that your reader will be rewarded for turning the page by raising interesting questions and not answering all of them right away.
For me, it was the just in these first couple of hundred words. Not only we got, like you say, the relationship between her and her dad, but the fact that she says, he says, "Go on a minute, the book's whispered its stories to you at night," and she's very earnestly like, "Sometimes, yes." So that was magic. And then, like later on, the fire. And he didn't like fire. Fire devours books. And so immediately I kind of got this like, well, if books are real and they whisper their stories to you and then they get devoured, not burnt, not like turned to ashes, literally devoured. It's kind of, that was what drew me in. I should say this is also being translated. She's a German writer and she translated this to English with someone else. So that's why some of the lines can read a bit funny.
Okay, yeah, I didn't notice any.
I think it's first smooth, but there's words in there you probably wouldn't use these days.
I see. Also, the tone and voice is a bit different from most middle grade. And this is kind of a distant voice that gives it a very fairy tale-ish kind of vibe. Anytime that you have this third-person distant omniscient that feels like it's sort of setting the stage for some big adventure or something like that, you will lead to that. Or it leads to having that kind of fairy tale quality, which makes sense for a book like this.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do and get it engaging.
Right. Thank you for that. Let's hear our next page from Megan.
Okay, you have a choice of one of 3 books. I'm holding Dune, I'm holding Dead Until Dark by Charlene Harris, and I'm holding Pride and Prejudice.
Let's do Dead Until Dark book. Is that the True Blood books?
Yes.
If it's
the first
go
one.
with that. Let's go with that one because we did a space opera before, and Pride and Prejudice. I think everyone knows the opening, so let's do this one.
Yeah, the other 2 are also quite sort of old. So I mean, this one's older, but not nearly as old. Mm-hmm. I've been waiting for the vampire for years when he walked into the bar. Ever since vampires came out of the coffin, as they laughingly put it, 4 years ago, I'd hoped one would come to Bon Ton. We had all the other minorities in our little town. Why not the newest and legally recognized undead? But rural northern Louisiana wasn't too tempting to vampires, apparently. On the other hand, New Orleans was a real center for them. the whole Anne Rice thing, right? It's not that long a drive from Bontown to New Orleans. And everyone who came into the bar said that if you threw a rock on any street corner, you'd hit one, though you better not. But I was waiting for my own. You can tell I don't get out much. And it's not because I'm not pretty. I am. I'm blonde and blue-eyed and 25, and my legs are strong and my bosom is substantial, and I have a waspy waistline. I look good in the warm weather waitress outfit Sand picked out for us, black shorts and a white t-shirt, white socks, and black Nike. And that is all that's on the first page of my particular book.
All right. Thanks for that. A lot of world building happening here as well. Whoop. Let's answer some questions. I'll start. So the thing I noticed first is, or questions being raised are about the sort of society that she lives in, which is clearly not our real world exactly. This is a world in which she mentions vampires have come out of the coffin, meaning that now they're sort of part of society. And it's a world that has almost become, we've gone from secretive underworld to almost a magical realism type of setup where now supernatural creatures are accepted as a part of American society and life. We get a sense of where the book takes place and what the sort of local culture is going to be like. And thank you for the great dialect as well, which helps to build that sense of where in the country we actually are. And even ties in this sort of genre self-awareness by mentioning Anne Rice. Tells us that this takes place in a world where people are aware of vampire media. Like, people have been maybe reading and watching vampire movies and books for a long time, and therefore these characters that sort of stepped out of the shadows and into public life, everyone already knows the basics. They've sort of become a minority, as she said, the newest minority. So it raises a lot of questions. How did the world get this way? What else is out there if vampires are out there? Anybody else? Let's hear what are some interesting questions that are raised. Tone and voice, promises and expectations and conflict. I read this in like 8th grade. I did not know there would be so much sex in them. Like, no one told me or warned me, so I was like very off guard as like, should I be reading this in the school cafeteria?
It's a good thing you're not reading Janine Frost. Those are even sexier.
Where'd your recommendation for it come from?
I don't remember. I was a kid. I think it just had a vampire on the front, and that's all it took for me to get it.
Okay.
I read American Psycho at 12 and wished I hadn't.
Oh, no kidding. Let's hear one more comment on the opening of Dead Until Dark. Any of these questions? Megan, why don't you take one?
Okay, well, it gives you the promise that there will be a vampire introduced. She was waiting on her own vampire, and he's walked into the bar. So we're going to find more we're going to find out more about that vampire that walked into the bar. Plus, it gives you an expectation that there is potential romance because she's gone to quite a lot of effort to make sure that we know that the lead character is attractive.
Right. It does feel sort of...
that she's waiting for her own vampire.
Yeah, I wonder what that means. Does that mean she's always wanted to date a vampire?
Not necessarily, I think, in the character's mind, but it does leave it in the writer's mind or in the reader's mind, right? Because that's possessive. I was waiting for one to move to Bontown. I was waiting for my own vampire.
Right. It could mean two. Actually, it's a little ambiguous what it could mean. It could mean one of two things. One, it could mean I sort of have always wanted to be with a vampire. Or it could also mean she's writing in retrospective and she's saying, I was waiting for the vampire that I would go ahead to fall in love with. As in, I was waiting for my own vampire, as in my future husband, or something like that, right?
Right, but because this isn't a past perfect, right? It really isn't past perfect tense. It's past tense. So, it leaves that ambiguous. And so it does give the reader a hint that this will be a romance.
For sure.
And it does give the readers a hint that you're going to be exploring a world very similar to our own.
Right.
And so you're going to get, and once vampires are mentioned, you're going to get some horror elements.
True.
What we don't get yet is the murder mystery thriller that it is.
Right.
So you get a really nice little character introduction, a little world introduction. And we're going to get some more probably character introduction as she goes into her disability, right? Which calls her disability.
Her disability being that she can read minds, isn't that it?
Yes.
Or has to read minds almost. Compulsively reads minds.
Yeah, she just hears what people are thinking.
Do they keep it in the TV show where she has an ear on top of her head, or did they take that out of the show?
I don't think she has an ear on top of her head.
Am I thinking of a different book? Is that in a different book? I could have sworn that she had an ear on her head that could hear thoughts. Somebody look up what's that from, because
the show.
That's definitely a different book.
Okay, somebody look it up. Fine.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I could have sworn it was this one. Anyway, yes, thank you for your analysis there. I think the opening paragraphs tell us a lot of what this book is interested in. If it opened on a crime scene and the details of a murder happening, it's a very different feel than I was waiting for this guy in a bar, right? It tells us that this is a story that is centered on a relationship versus being centered on a mystery, a question, a war, something else. Your opening page tells us what can we expect to read more of, and what kind of stuff is going to happen in the story. Let's talk opening hook. So the reader's going to judge in the first few pages whether or not they want to keep reading, really probably within the first page. The hook is the technique that you're going to use on the first page, or within those, like every chapter has its, every chapter has its own kind of hook. And your opening couple chapters form what is called the just like greater overall hook of the book. But you have to always be sort of hooking and drawing the reader in, because if you are not drawing the reader in, then you are pushing them actively away. You have to consider how many different things are competing for people's attention nowadays, and that we have to feel like we promise them that something is worth their time very soon. Meaning that you sort of have to be very upfront about the sort of stuff that is going to happen in your book, and the tone and the emotional experience that you're offering. Is this going to be a scary book? Then maybe start with something kind of scary or unsettling at the very least. Is this going to be a funny book? Your opening page should probably be pretty funny. Is it going to be a book that is about huge themes about all of humanity, or all of existence, or all of human consciousness, or love, or any of these great big themes? Then the opening page makes a nice place for you to calibrate and set those expectations of what we will be exploring. What are we going to be diving into, and what can you look forward to being rewarded by if you continue to turn those pages? Many things can be interesting in different ways. It's a non-visual medium, so you don't have to open on action like the way that you often do in a movie. Opening on crazy action has a high chance of actually losing readers, but it's a good idea to start with a sense of motion of some kind. This is just like a general, very common novel writing tip. You open on something happening rather than just like a description of a fence or like some grass or something like that. It's not that those can never be compelling, especially if you very quickly connect them to something else interesting, or you find something within that to hook us, right? If you start by describing a house, maybe you start by describing, the house was as gray as the corpse, or something like that, right? And we're like, oh, what corpse? What do you mean? And you maybe can draw a bit of interest by not fully explaining yourself at the very start. The opening line is a great place to introduce some kind of contradiction, or some kind of something that seems like a contradiction, something that seems like, well, what does that actually mean? What was the first line of Confusion of Princes? I've died 3 times. Immediately we're like, what are you talking about? How is that possible? I want to know about a world in which someone can die multiple times. So we want to pull the reader in, and we want to pull the right reader in, who's going to enjoy the entirety of your journey that is to come, and therefore we want to make sure we don't start with something that misleads them. If you're writing a really serious, scary book, you probably don't want to open with a light and frivolous scene unless it comes with some sort of promise of malice and sinister, nefarious secrets underneath it, right? You can definitely write, some kids are playing at a park, but maybe then slowly we come to understand we're watching it from the POV of somebody in the bushes with binoculars. That's kind of creepy, right? So you can always find a way to present almost any scene in almost any tone. We're trying to set the right expectations in terms of voice, emotionality, and genre thrills. This is why so many action-adventure movies, let's start with horror, actually. horror is a good example because horror so often, especially in the movie world, we're going to open with a scary thing. Whether that's in the creature feature, it's you're down at the docks and the fisherman, he gets something funny on something tugs on his fishing pole. He pulls it out of the water. It's a monster. It attacks him. Or maybe, we are raised some kind of question as to what even was it. Was it a human? Was it a monster? Why did it pull him into the water and make that terrible sound and leave that green slime behind? We're raising some questions that can be used in our mystery later on, maybe to give some information, but we're also setting the idea, this is going to be a book where there is a monster that attacks people. We may afterwards go into a few chapters of meeting the characters, sort of establishing their normal world, but it's important to, in that opening chapter, that's the kind of cold open, right? We are setting the idea of, if you keep reading, what is going to happen later? What is going to pay off at a later time? And it almost acts as like a trailer, like a preview for the entire book. The first few pages are like a trailer. So you could start by describing something. These are just like different ideas. You don't have to go with any of these things. These just are things that can work and have worked in the past. You can start with describing something unique and noteworthy about the setting or the time. Think of Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. You might highlight something interesting about the character. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of Number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. Maybe you might raise the question, are they really so normal? Do they protest too much? We could raise a question. Where's Papa going with that axe from Charlotte's Web? Or we could open on a scene in progress. Something in the middle of happening. That's what we just did with the girl from Inkheart. It's like many years later she would recall this. It's like this exact line. Many years later as he faced the firing squad. This is from 1,000 Years of Solitude. So these are just like a couple different ideas that can work. Ultimately, we're trying to offer promises to the reader, an interesting piece of insight or information that will unspool if they continue to read. We want to introduce the most compelling character, maybe by showcasing their unique perspective or tactics or voice. Like in Confusion of Princes, we have this kind of rebellious, very colloquial speaking prince in this world of crazy sci-fi. He acts as that very grounding voice, very simple voice and tone. We could paint a picture in the reader's mind that fills them with questions that they will feel compelled to answer and would sort of showcase genre thrills that may be in the distance, but in any case are promising we will get to those things. And ultimately showcase your unique writing style from the get-go. So whatever is cool, specific, and just you about your work, you want to show that off as soon as you can. Make sure that we know what ride we are in line for and what experience we will get by continuing to read. Let's take any questions on the goals and tactics that we use to reach those goals in opening pages.
For me, the opening page goal is to make you turn the page.
Yep.
And that's my main goal. That's, and that's sort of the goal with every page, but that very first page especially, like, I want to capture you. I want you to fall in love with the character as fast as you can.
Right. And hopefully if we realize this is not the kind of book for me at all, you will understand that too, and you'll be able to let the reader put it down right away. We don't want to mislead them. We want to calibrate them for the right experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, as well as making them fall in love with the character, I want my first page to be creepy and scary because it is a horror book for kids. And I don't want any kids picking it up that don't like horror, reading it, getting excited, and then reading further and realizing it's horror. So I want them to know it's scary from the beginning.
Yeah, great point. Readers don't typically like to be blindsided. There are ways to blindside the reader in a way that they want. Like in some genres, in certain ways, blindsiding the reader can actually be a huge part of what we're doing. And storytelling is entirely contingent on surprise, that idea of surprise. But there are certain emotional experiences that we don't want to slide into by in an unexpected way, right? There's certain emotional experiences that would sort of kind of ruin the book for different types of readers, so you just have to be aware of your audience and the sort of things that would turn them off of the experience.
And also with an A-B plot thing.
Let's do one at a time.
Make sure that you're introduced.
Start with Megan. Go ahead.
When you're doing an A-B plot thing, which I'm currently doing with the thing that I'm doing now, so the first thing I introduce in chapter 1 is the A plot. And then the B plot is introduced in chapter 2, along with the warning, so supposedly this hound is this house is haunted, and I think that's bullshit. You know.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Right.
Yep. So
you've got the
introducing
warning.
A story.
And you've got the warning that romantic things might happen, and those are in the first 2 chapters. You know. So it's supposedly you resolve them in reverse order for the introduction, right? You know, so you introduce A, and then you introduce B, and then you resolve B, and then you resolve A. So
right.
Anyway,
yeah, that's a really common way to do it. Is introduce A story in chapter 1, introduce B story in chapter 2, introduce C story in chapter 3, perhaps. Just makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
I don't have a C.
Sorry, too many speakers at once. I think we were hearing from Kat. Go ahead, Kat.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say I like the ABC plot wise because I like to introduce the main character, the protagonist, the absolute number one character, get them emotionally involved in said character as far as it goes, and kind of relate to something about that character in human nature or the experience, the fact that they're trying something completely different than what they would normally try. I do like blindsiding as well because I think for me, I like books that make me want to read just to find out what's going to happen. But I like to have a certain twist that proceeds further down the road. So if I can get emotionally attached to a character and there's also going to be a twist that I know is coming, I like to be able to have that build up, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yep, definitely. Certain genres are very dependent on twists and turns, and even you could consider, is there some sort of interesting central question in my first chapter that by the end I blindside everyone with some big twist, and that could sort of set the expectation. There's going to be twists all throughout my book. Your book doesn't have to have twists, but thrillers, for instance,
yeah,
people love them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there also needs to be a bit of foreshadowing in some books as far as goes, which I think pretty much any book will have some form of that in some fashion, whether it's Michael Crichton or the Nina Blake series. You know, those are 2 very different books, but it gives a representation of that hook, like you were saying. If you get the reader be connected to something, whether it's the place, time, or the actual character. For me, I actually like it to be the actual character as well as everything else, but I like them to be emotionally involved with the character themselves.
Right, yeah, we're trying to invest in their journey. Whether we like them or we hate them, like, the only really bad thing is we don't care. So you can root for the character or you can root against the character. We don't want to be ambivalent about the character.
Exactly. I don't want them not to care about the character. Even if they love to hate that character, at least they're ready to find out why they hate him and get even more reasons to do so. Again, that builds up to the climax and find out all the end results. Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe we're reading for who's going to take this guy down. This guy's the worst. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts on first pages? Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, they will make you obsessed, and they are the hardest thing to write, except for last pages. Anyhow, right. That's it.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, don't get hung up on your first page, because you can always return to it by the end. Like, if you hobble yourself and say, I have to have a perfect first page before I can start, or I have to have a perfect first line before I can start, you're dead in the water. You're never going to get the book done. So don't agonize over it. Like, you can have a placeholder for now, and then once you finish the book, maybe you'll see something that leaps out to you, as that would be such a better way to start. And it can be a lot easier to figure out a better first page once you have written the whole thing. So don't panic if you don't have a great one. Go ahead.
On that, Barry Cunningham from Chicken House always says that the number of advice he gives to most people who come to him, like the way he publishes the book, is the most often thing he says is, let's get rid of the first chapter. The story starts on the second chapter, and it's not like get rid of it completely. It's like he moves things around with you. But basically, what he was saying to all of us who were writing our first drafts is, don't worry too much about it, because it's the most common thing I'm going to say anyway. So if you're agonizing over the first line, and then you go in and he says, let's get rid of the whole first chapter, the story starts in chapter 2, you know. So basically, yeah, he said basically the first, that killer first line, sometimes, rarely, an author might start with that and that just might stick. But most of the time, it's the last thing that they come up with.
Yeah.
And they usually do it with their editors.
Trust that you'll get there. and don't be too attached to your first, or don't be too attached to anything in your story, I would say, except for, I guess, like, the core of why you wrote it in the first place. You could be attached to that, but, like, you have to expect that during editing, things may move around or change. It's not all up to you. It's not like screenwriting where you have, like, way more voices involved, but you have, like, fewer but stronger voices in the editorial side. Go ahead.
Can I add to that as well? So one of my friends is a published author in the UK, Sophie Cleverly, and she's done two different series, and in both of them she had to change a main character's name. So don't get attached to the names either. There was reasons for it in publishing. Like, one was as simple as she was going to be called, she's now called Scarlet, so she was going to be called a name that's related to Red, Ruby. And it was as simple as the publisher already had another main book with a main character called Ruby, whose author's last name began with a C, so they'd be too close together on the shelf.
Right.
And it was as simple as that.
Sometimes the marketing reasons... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And then the other one was she was called Victoria, and Australia, HarperCollins said we won't publish that because you can't have a main character called Victoria, and Australia it doesn't really work because we've got a whole state called that, so change it.
That's a weird reason.
I know, but that was the reason, so she had to change it.
They would never accept a character with the same name as the state they live in? Huh? Okay.
I think it was to do with it being like a big title on the front page.
Oh.
Because it's Violet Vale. And if it's Victoria Vale, because it doesn't sound like a last name, Vale, it makes it sound like it's about the place rather than if it was like Victoria Simpleton, I don't know, then it's really obvious it's a person.
Yeah, sometimes you can't tell what notes you're going to get. Sometimes stuff completely out of your control, stuff that you never would have foreseen, means that one change or another has to happen. So, yeah, I know authors get so attached to every aspect of their book, but try to be a little flexible if you can, if you want to be traditionally published. If you want to self-publish, you can be as controlling as you want, though. But then you have to do all the marketing yourself, so good luck. You'll have way more work on that end.
My editor said pick your battles, because there are things that if you put your foot down and say, no, I really don't want to change that, and you can give a valid reason, they do listen to you. Like, that's one difference between screenwriting and novels, is that in novels, you, the writer, is king. It's your story.
Yeah. You are not easily
replaced. Exactly. So if you're talking with your editor and they're saying, I really think you should get rid of this, or I really think you should add this, and you're like, no, I'm doing that because it shows this character's development in this way, or no, I want to do that because I want this representation because it reflects me, or whatever it may be. But my editor said choose your battles, because if you're always arguing, you'll get the reputation as an arguer. Whereas if you go, okay, for most things, and then there's that one thing that is your non-negotiable.
Right. Yeah, that's a great
point. They'll listen.
Don't use all your ammo on non-essential conflicts. Like, err on the side of yes, and then you can always back away and say, while I was working on it, I realized that didn't work as well, and here's why. Like, you do have, in terms of all forms of art, you have more control than most types of artists. So you can put your foot down when needed, but yeah, try to be easy to work with if you want to try to publish. Like, you're going to be working with it's very collaborative in some ways, so try to make it painless. Okay, so we're basically at the end of the first page stuff. We could go more into conflicts and things like this. I think we will save this for next week. Let's go into our lab and workshop period. So this is the time where you can bring up questions you have related to your own book project. Maybe you have a log line or a book premise, or you want to take us through your story and get feedback on some aspect of it. This is just a very open, flexible time where we can figure out what your needs are and how to help you best. So let's open the floor. What would you guys like to work on or ask about?
I just wanted to very quickly run an idea past, because as I was saying, I've got to come up with other ideas. And I'm going to do one which is already my completed book, but I need to just say, oh, I also do have this idea. So just wanted to see if it works. trying to find my one line. Basically, it's the idea is the vanishing vault, and it's like a vault or a cupboard or something that our character finds and goes into, and it temporarily makes her invisible and able to go through walls and stuff like that, which sounds really, really fun. She's in this like in our world but can't interact with it, but can watch what's going on.
Can I pause you
Only
really
she
quickly,
finds-
just for context? Is
Go
this
on,
is
yeah.
this a new book, or are you talking this is an idea for the book you're already working on?
A new book, a completely new idea, a new story idea that I've got to take. They want to know that I've got more than one book in me.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
So yeah, it's called The Vanishing Vault, and it's like it takes her into our own world, but she's kind of an observer on it. She can walk through walls, listen into conversations. But then she finds that there's other children trapped in this like alternate existence plane from all these different time periods, and basically it's a it was invented by someone who wanted to freeze time because his daughter was dying, and then was kidnapping kids to be his daughter's friends. And our character's got to find a way to destroy this to free the people that are in there. It's half baked at the moment because I literally came up with it this morning when I found out I've got to have new ideas, but I was going through something that I wanted to be different.
Okay. And you just want first impressions, or you want us to ask questions? What would help you?
Ask questions, but first impressions about whether you think that, like, does that immediately say, oh, that's a really interesting idea, or does it sound cliche and done before?
I would say it definitely sounds like things that I've read before, like the idea of becoming essentially a ghost temporarily could be fun. I wonder what the character would really do with those powers, I guess, would be my main question, because I could maybe get a little excited about it if I knew specifically the kind of action we'd be seeing, but I'm not quite sure what the character's actually going up against. So can you clarify what's the obstacle or antagonist?
Yes, so the antagonist is the person who built it. Because so she keeps using it to do like little silly tricks, listening in on people, finding out like gossip on friends at school and things like that. But then the more she uses it, the harder it is for her to like come back into our reality. Basically, as you use it over time, you get stuck there, which is what's happened to these other kids. The obstacle she'd be going up against is the person who invented it. Because if she destroys it, that will kill his daughter who was dying, and that's why he created it for. So his daughter could live forever in this, like, non-existence existence, and then he was kidnapping children to be his daughter's friends, basically creating this like out of plane existence where none of them grow up. Kind of Peter Pan, you know, the kids never grow up, but like the dark version.
And so the reason she would destroy this entire alternate plane is just to free a couple, like it's just a few kids?
Yeah, and maybe even herself. I'm thinking she gets trapped in there.
Okay. I'll open it to the room to ask what other people think too. I'll just give you my initial impressions. So to begin with, maybe if your character had a little bit more of a compelling reason to be using the invisibility rather than just to do silly pranks or to like get gossip on people. Maybe if your character is, I don't know, living in poverty and is going to use it to get money and food for the first time, or to like rise up in terms of her status in some kind of way. Maybe that could be a little bit more of an interesting, like a reason that we want to really root for her to be playing around with the device rather than just it's kind of fun. And then that can make it sort of just feel more important that this is happening, and like have an element of wish fulfillment beyond just, wouldn't that be kind of amusing? It would sort of be like, what would I do if I had this sort of thing? And what else? So the fact that it's just sort of hard to picture what a lot of the action will be, I guess, because I guess it depends if you're saying the character gets herself trapped in this other realm. If that happens at the beginning of the story, go ahead.
yeah, it's not an idea that immediately goes, ooh, then I'm going to move on to find another idea, because I don't want to spend too long developing this. I want it to be an idea that I literally can just, and they'll go, because they sell based on the concept, so it needs to be like a shop concept that can then be developed later on. Like, for example, the one I'm working on now, it was just this concept of, you know, a girl and a ghost sister meet a necromancer who could bring a sister back, like, and it's grown from there. So that's fine.
Maybe it needs a central relationship in that same way, because the central relationship in your other book is very much part of that hook. So maybe a central relationship could jazz this one up as well.
So what, like her sister disappears and she's trying to look for her or something, or a little brother disappears and that's when they find the vault.
Could be, or it could be you have to team up with the person that owns or has access to the vault in the first place. Like, and I don't know, it could be almost anyone, right? Like, is there a central partnership that they have to team up in order to take down this villain? Is there some sort of connection to the villain himself? Is he her father or something like that? Maybe she was one of the ones who escaped and is now trying to get back, or something along those lines. Yeah, I wonder if maybe it's just it feels like we're missing just a little bit of intrigue in terms of either the character or the situation. Like, the situation that would feel hooky would be like a girl gets an invisibility thing and she's going to use it to do a heist on Fort Knox, or something like that, which would just be like a really clear, intriguing, fun situation that I can imagine right off the bat. If not that, I would try to, or like pivot to a different hook. And maybe requiring you to sharpen and find what that hook could be. It would probably come in the form of character, but let's open it to the room. What are the rest of you guys think? First impressions?
Crickets.
They've all vanished in the vault. Is anyone else there?
Yeah, sorry, I had to get everything set up for work, so I was...
That's okay.
Quite honest, I apologize.
We're going to recap it right now. I'm going to recap Becky's idea. Tell me if I have it right. There's a girl that gets access to a vault that makes her turn invisible into like kind of a ghost that can walk through walls. And that's the central hook, and she's going to use that in order to try to defeat the guy that invented this vault, who has kidnapped some children and kept them in this kind of ghost realm.
That's kind of interesting.
Did I get it right, Becky?
Is she actually going to come back to for real, or is she going to remain a ghost? And is there anyone who can see her? Does she have like a companion who can see her? There's a lot of questions, which is good.
Companion's always nice. That's that central relationship that we were talking about. That can be a point of focus for your hook. It doesn't have to be. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I think it'd be fun.
Go ahead.
I think it'd be fun if the only person who can see her is a school bully or something.
The only one that can see her is her dog.
Yeah, that's less useful unless the dog talks.
Right.
I don't know, that could be quite interesting. Because then she's trying to get the dog.
Yeah, wait.
But
so,
like, if it's a dog,
right.
Dogs can be quite smart.
True. That would sort of almost be like what's it called? Stranger Things, where we're trying to like communicate to people in the other dimension, but we can't actually use words, so you have to find like other ways of getting through. That kind of makes me think maybe a stronger hook would be she gets trapped in the ghost realm pretty early. Maybe she's 12-year-old Violet, whatever, is trapped as a ghost. She's stuck as a ghost, and she's trying to become human again.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the hook.
Yeah, I like that.
Almost like the Lovely Bones, but if we could, if the Lovely Bones had the ghost actually trying to go back to life.
Yeah, I still like it being that she's gone into this, like, the vault. So it's got a sci-fi element. Just because I'm trying to differentiate it from my current book.
Oh,
which
it's
is
like
all about...
It's a science vault?
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's like an alternate dimension, basically, that's in our dimension.
Right, got it.
Yeah. Thank you. I
Sure.
will think about it.
Hope that's helpful to you. Let's reopen the floor to lab. So, roadblocks in your writing projects, questions, opening pages that you want us to look at.
I'm always down to have you guys, look at opening pages. But
Yeah, I wanted to look at my opening page.
Okay, did you share it?
I went to,
I
I
can.
shared it in the documents. Or no,
Connor, I'm gonna disappear now.
Okay.
Take the dog out for the fireworks start going off.
All good. All right, we'll see you next time, Becky. Thanks for coming.
See you later, bye.
If you would like me to review your opening, you can link it in the chat. I don't see any pages there right now.
Okay, hold on just a second. There we go.
Okay. What format is this? Can I open this on a PC? Can you post a PDF or a Google Docs link? I don't think I can open a Pages file.
Hold on. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. In the meantime, other questions? Things you guys are working on? Story issues you're fixing? Loglines, pitches? Whatever you have. I see an opening page from Megan.
Yeah, I just put the first page in the chat. It'd be the easiest way to do it.
Okay. One sec.
I received 3 first pages, but this is the one I'm currently working on, the book I'm currently.
Okay. Let's take a look. And this is from the Jane Austen horror comedy, right?
Meets Scooby-Doo, yes.
Right. Okay. And are you looking for feedback, and if so, on something specific? Maybe you can tell us.
Well, I'll take any and all general feedback, but I want to know if it's catchy.
If it's catchy. Okay. Does it feel compelling to turn the page? All right, Chapter 1, Cats, Dogs, and Horses. A blurry orange streak darted out of the forest into the snowy country lane in front of Jazz's car and coalesced into a cat. She swerved to avoid it, she being Jazz. Jazz swerved to avoid it. For a split second, it seemed the maneuver had succeeded. Then she hit the black ice. Time stretched out, seconds extended in languid ripples to near infinity as her old Chevy Malibu slid sideways and towards the ditch. Jazz used the moment to reflect. The entire incident seemed like a metaphor for her life. The cat crouched in the street staring at her, its yellow eyes huge and luminescent. Jazz stared back. If black cats were bad luck, what kind of luck were fluffy ginger cats who caused car accidents? The sedan came to an abrupt halt in the ditch with a metallic crunch. It sat wedged at a 45-degree angle. A litany of curses ran through Jazz's mind and off her tongue. She wasn't sure if she was angry or merely exasperated. Feeling sorry for herself, yeah, that was definite. She scrambled out of the front seat and sank ankle-deep into the snow. At least she hadn't hit the cat. Wait, where was the cat? She scanned the isolated road, lined with bare winter trees. It seemed to have disappeared entirely. There were no animal tracks either coming or going in any direction. What the hell? She rubbed her eyes, as if doing so would make the elusive feline reappear. Still no cats. I've been driving too long. I'm just seeing things because I'm exhausted. Well, whatever happened to the cat, there was no time to dwell on it. She needed to be practical. You can have a meltdown later. All right. Thanks for sharing this. I think this does a good job of establishing the voice. This is kind of like a sarcastic, sort of irreverent tone to it. The main character is sort of self-deprecating, a little bit wry. Is that the general voice you're going for, Megan?
Yes.
Great. So yeah, I think you communicate that well. She has that kind of like, of course, some other horrible thing happened to me, sort of woe is me vibe to her, but it doesn't feel like she's dwelling on it or letting it get her depressed. She kind of takes the punches as they come. I think the cat causing the car accident's interesting. It feels almost magical, like you're setting up that idea that maybe something supernatural is happening here, but not too much. It's just the vaguest suggestion of that, the luminescent eyes. I mean, cats already do kind of look like that, but it does make you wonder why this one was behaving in this sort of strange way. Feels like it could be setting up mystery or fantasy to me.
It's setting up both, so.
Great. Anybody want to weigh in? Maybe we can even go back to our questions. Oops, let's go back up.
I like when she wrote, what kind of luck were orange fluffy ginger cats. Having a ginger cat, we used to have a black cat. I just like that a lot. That's really cute.
Awesome, thank you for that. Anybody want to take a swing at one of these points in our opening hook analysis? I've mostly commented on the tone and voice. Maybe somebody can tell us what questions are raised here.
Are you commenting on Michelle's or Megan's?
Megan's.
Yeah, the 3 books that I've written, when you read each first page, they definitely have a distinctive voice from piece to piece.
Great.
I
Definitely
would say
protagonists, but still.
For me, the very first sentence, it's a bit complex for like a very just the opening. Like you might want to just stop with it, darting in front of Jazz's car.
You mean split it into two?
It's a lot.
Into 2 thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could work.
I mean, just that very first sentence, it's a lot for an open, you know what I mean? Like you kind of want us to just, it sort of like interrupts the pacing a little bit, the way it's written now.
Thank you for that.
What if we just take out the snowy country lane bit? A blurry streak darted out of the forest in front of Jazz's car and coalesced into a cat.
I think that's really good.
That's interesting. It just I don't understand what coalesced into a cat looks like.
Oh, I do. The blurry. I think she's saying it's a cat that's moving very fast at first. That's why it's a blurry orange streak, and then it sort of resolves into visual clarity as a cat. That's what she meant, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that didn't throw me off. I mean, certain things will work for some readers and not others. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it could be interesting. Just a streak darted in front of her car, right? And then it was a cat.
Yeah, you could split it up into a couple different thoughts as well.
Yeah. But I like the idea of just a blurry orange streak darting, in front of her car. That's a really interesting way to start a story.
Thanks, Nacho. And yeah, I think just to answer this, I think I asked before, what are some questions being raised here? I think the main question is simply, what is this cat up to? Is something more going on here, or was this just a random accident? Jazz almost seems to suspect something else might be at play. Makes the audience wonder too. Okay, thanks for sharing this. I hope that was some useful feedback and analysis for you.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, let's go back to lab and workshop period questions. Michelle, is your opening page ready to share?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Have you already posted it?
Yes, I did. Oh no, wait, that's pages again. Darn it. Okay. Oh wait, I posted it in documents.
Okay. Of which channel? Would it be easier? You can just copy and paste the text itself, like Megan did here, if that works.
Yeah. Okay. Let me do that. Give me just a second.
Okay. We have about 10 minutes for questions or working out story problems. Now's a great time to do that.
Okay, I just posted.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. And so what feedback are you looking for in this opening?
Does this work? Is it interesting? Is it boring? I think it's a little bit typical because we're opening with a professor talking to the class, but at the same time, it does set up that this is what's going to happen in our story. We're going to encounter, something that. That's about a gamma ray burst, and the book is called Gamma, so I think you can kind of guess that that's what's going to happen.
Okay, I'll read it now. Dr. Iris Aloyo stood in front of her class during the lecture on extinction-level events as part of the Cosmic Catastrophic Events series for her astrophysics graduate students. This series was always interesting, and students usually had lots of questions. The amphitheater was enormous. It could seat 3,000 students easily. However, this class was no more than 100. She noticed cameras and reporters taking notes had entered the classroom. Maybe this series is more popular than I realized. Rogue asteroids can be extinction-level events, but not always. Rogue planets are usually planet killers. However, we, meaning astronomical professionals, think that our moon was formed when the planet we call Theia crashed into Earth and created our satellite, she said. Add years when this happened. Is that a note for you? Or?
Yeah, that's a note for me. Sorry.
Oh, okay. What's the worst ELE that could happen to, well, us? A young woman asked. A black hole, right? A student interrupted Iris. Before a black hole, there'd be a gamma ray burst, she said, and wrote the name on the screen. You've learned about them, right? Well, when stars above 8 to 10 solar masses of our sun exhaust all of their hydrogen, which is their fuels... Is that what that says?
Oh, yes.
Which is their fuel. Okay, which is their fuel. They explode and die, which is then a very dense object, a black hole, but before then, they let out I think it's a gamma ray burst. So a lot of just spelling, grammar, and punctuation issues in the first page here.
Okay.
Could a gamma ray burst hit us, the Earth, a reporter asked. It's very unlikely, but there are no black holes pointed to us, Iris said. But if there was one that hit the Earth, the reporter followed up. Okay. Nice job. Thanks for sharing this. So let's start with feedback. I think the biggest thing is the lack. I'm like a broken record. You've heard this before, but we need more thoughts, opinions, and emotions from the characters. In fact, I don't think there's any emotions expressed in this opening page, are there?
Well, when she says, maybe the series is more popular than I realized.
What emotion is that?
There's only 100 people there.
Right. So is she overwhelmed? Is she feeling confident? Is this the sort of thing she tackles all the time?
Oh, so she's happy about this. So I guess I should write, maybe this series is more popular than I thought, gleefully or happily.
You could. I mean, I would maybe ask, for instance, is there anything else that might reveal for us? Is looking out at this, is she like, holy crap, my class is finally taking off. Take that, Mom and Dad. You said this would never lead anywhere, right? There can be more. You don't have to go into a full flashback to give us more thought, emotion, or nuance. I think that we're looking for just a little more out of the characters, and more point of view, the specific opinion of the character that we are in the sort of head of. We are in Iris's point of view, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So think of how she would describe the world. Imagine that she's the one writing the text. Are these students annoying to her? Does she really respect them? Does she find their questions to be trivial? Are they distracted on their phones and that annoys her? Are they challenging and pushing her and she feels in her element and like she's thriving doing this? I would maybe I think the information is good to have, especially because this will be relevant for the rest of the story. But I would consider if you can give us a little more from the character. It doesn't mean we have to go into a full flashback on their backstory, but just let us into their head a little more.
Okay, I think instead of writing, maybe this series is more popular than I realized. And maybe she might say, take that, Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Sure.
And maybe she would think, today University of Hawaii, tomorrow Cosmos,
Sure.
the series.
Yeah, maybe she has aspirations that maybe, teaching this class is helping her reach some kind of goal or dream of hers. Maybe it's a big deal rather than being routine.
Right, or maybe she doesn't have those kind of aspirations, but how I originally wrote it is that there was a student, a young woman who said that she wanted to do this kind of thing, but the parents wanted her to be a doctor, and Dr. Oloyo says, between teaching classes and giving seminars and lectures and writing books, she said, you can make as much as a doctor, if not more. So she's telling her that, the financial incentives, maybe she, I should, I maybe I should also put, like TV shows, but maybe she is, she has aspirations. But as far as the students, I feel like that this is a graduate class, and these questions are what sixth graders would ask. Not people who are in a graduate level class. So I don't know. Maybe I should dig some more and ask ask better questions of like, instead of what's the worst ELE that could happen to us, maybe ask her to make a comment on like the gamma ray burst that happened during the Ordovician period. And what would happen if such an event happened, and what's the likelihood we could survive? Because that would directly tie into the story, but also that would be a little bit more graduate level, question.
Either that, or I would just have her respond in such a way that she's like, wow, that guy's definitely failing the midterm if he's asking questions like that. She can always comment on it.
Not put the person down like my astronomy teacher did.
But in her mind, she can think whatever you want. Like, that might give us insight to her personality. To begin with, if she's like, oh, that poor guy, he needs to study more, versus like, what a moron. Like, you know what I mean? Like, tells us about her, even the way she thinks about things that are happening in the scene.
Well, I'm thinking that she's a nice person, but maybe she's a little bit, she's a little bit concerned that somebody is asking such a simple question about a black hole, right? And that maybe she's thinking, if you think, if that's your question, I'm questioning how you got into the graduate program, but not say it to him, but think it to herself.
Yeah. And maybe in her own mind, she's like, I remember when I used to wonder about that. I had nightmares about black holes when I was 8. Something, can always connect it to her own backstory and experience.
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe, she would be thinking that, like, I remember that nightmare. I was 8 years old, and I was convinced a black hole was going to come and swallow the planet. Yeah. So okay, yeah. And when I and how I ended it, I think I left a little bit of a cliffhanger with no answer. But should I have an answer to that? Where the person says, but if there was one that hit us, I'm wondering if maybe she would respond with like, well, then God help us, or it's going to be a very bad day. Or, maybe she should talk a little bit about the Ordovician extinction and what could be expected. But I don't want to give away too much,
I think you have the right idea, though. Some sort of cliffhanger or some sort of line that makes us compelled to keep reading is a good idea for the ending. Some sort of very punchy line that feels like it sums up everything we just read, or maybe sets us up for whatever the conflict is going to be after this. So I think you have the right idea there.
Okay, so should I keep it as the last line as it is, or should I maybe respond with maybe her saying, well, it would be a horrible day, or God help us, or, something like that?
Yeah, I would ask, how would just your character express that idea? How would she, and you don't have to know the answer now, but think like, what would specifically my character say in response to that question?
Okay, all right. I think what I would say is, if it were me, I would say, "God help us." You
Okay.
know,
Maybe that's
and
the
maybe
right move then.
that's 100 people and 3,000 seats is that's really a success. I'm thinking, no, I had math classes that were easily 1,000 students. You know, um, and that was considered decent size math class. So I'm thinking 103,000 is like, that's pitiful. But for this, maybe it's maybe quite a lot. So um anyway, all right, I really appreciate it. And I'll add a little bit more of what she's thinking. And maybe I'll keep in the line that she says, maybe this series is more popular than I realized. Then she might think to herself, take that, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Right. Sure.
So
Great. Okay. Well,
anyway,
hope that feedback was helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
sure, I appreciate it.
All right. We do have to start wrapping up. We are at our time limit, but for next time, the goal is to start writing. So that means write 5 to 10,000 words a week, probably. You've, of course, set your own word count goal just based on the totals that we looked at today. So, yeah, for the next week, here we go. Write 5 to 10,000 words every week. You can update your username to tell us your progress, and you can come to lab sessions if you have questions or feedback that you need while you're working through it. Although you don't need to get feedback on every page. If you have things that come up that you think might be holding you back or preventing you from succeeding in some way, then definitely let us know. We can try to put you on the right track. Okay, thanks for coming by. We have lab today from 4 to 6, and we have TV tomorrow from 11 to 1, and table read tomorrow at 2 p.m. There's also plenty of new groups happening tomorrow, including 5 and 6 p.m. We have short story and fantasy group. There's poetry group. Lots of events on Sundays now. All right, thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you soon at your next script camp or word camp class or event, and we hope to see you for the rest of these novel classes that are taking place on WordCamp from 12 to 2 on Saturdays.